Today's episode is brought to you by Rauland. For over 80 years, Rauland has been providing innovative critical communication solutions for hospitals and schools. Visit them on the web at www.rauland.com.
Welcome to the latest episode of CarePoints. I'm your host, Kenny Schiff, Chief Marketing Officer for Lone Star Communications, the Alero Solutions Group, and our latest family member, Promobix. Today's episode is part of my continuing series of conversations with my collaborators at Lone Star, customers, partners, and notable folks in the tech industry. Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to another great conversation with my guest. Hey, welcome back to CarePoints, and I'm excited to have my two guests today, Gina Brody from Rauland and Tessa McAuley from Lone Star. And one of the great things about our conversation today is both Tessa and I work for Rauland at differing points. And this is partially to celebrate the ongoing collaboration between Rauland and Lone Star, which is now in its 35th year, which is a pretty amazing thing. And Lone Star would not be where it is without the support of Rauland. And it's a great thing for us to be able to talk about all the cool things that we have done together and can do together. And today we're going to extend talking about patient safety communications and emergency communications in an acute care setting. And let's have Gina introduce herself. Tell us what she does at Rauland.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Brody. I'm the Principal Product Manager for Healthcare Software here at Rauland. I've been working here for 10 years and, of course, working with Lone Star that whole time.
All right, great. Tessa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name's Tessa McAuley, and I am with the Clinical Solutions Department, or the clinical side at Lone Star. And I really enjoy my job. I get to work with the CS team and the technical team to help work through problems and think of solutions moving forward for our customers. So nice to be here today.
And how long have you been doing this stuff?
Oh my gosh, I had to do the math. So I think at Lone Star total 7 years, and then I got to work at Rauland for around 3 years. So some time in the business, that's for sure. I love it.
All right, great. So I'm going to start with you, Gina, and we're going to explore in this first section threat management in an acute care setting. What are the most pressing threat scenarios hospitals face today?
Oh, gosh. I mean, we all see the news reports of active shooters at universities, K-12 schools, hospitals, and also increasingly see reports on physical violence against healthcare workers, sometimes combative patients or family members. The International Association of Healthcare Safety and Security indicated that assault rates in U.S. hospitals were up 23%. And on average, 2 nurses every hour are experiencing some kind of abuse. So really, there are a number of safety concerns from patients, from families, and outsiders in the hospitals.
And when I worked at Rauland in the 90s, nurse call was kind of growing past its pure kind of intercom roots. But patient safety was important, but safety from a threat standpoint was really not talked about very much. So as a product manager, these kinds of things are impacting your design and strategy about what the systems need to do. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And you're right. Patient safety has always been the number one thing, but now staff safety is becoming just as important and from different threats than we were traditionally looking at. So integrations have been our way to focus on safety, integrations with systems like Telecenter, where we can add overhead paging, staff duress solutions that include like a button press, a wearable that staff has. So if they're in need of immediate assistance, they're wearing something that they can ask for help, and integrating all those pieces together so that we can get the right person or the security office into the room quickly.
So Tessa, let's go to you. One of the things about the work that you do is you get a chance to comprehensively understand the customer and help them in the design process, but also from implementation and eventually from a support perspective. And the kind of workflows that Gina is talking about, they're not magical. They have to be orchestrated. They have to be designed. And I'm sure you have seen a lot of communications breakdowns that these types of systems can help. So how are communications breakdown during emergency situations affecting patient outcomes?
Yeah, so I've been seeing quite a bit from the Code Blue perspective, a lot of manual processes where staff are having to call directly to a PBX or 911 operator without the simple push of a button. So from a story perspective, there's a large hospital here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and I've been working with their team to help with Code Blue responses. And one thing that has really stuck with me from one of the physicians that I'm working with said, Tessa, you could call an ambulance 911 outside this hospital and get a better response time than inside of it. They had about like an 8 or 9 minute response time for the Code Blue team to arrive. And I mean, that's too late. So really working with the teams to figure out how to automate the process and make sure everybody's well informed and the right people get there at the right time is there's a lot of passion behind it. And our customers are needing help with those workflows and determining, how to make things better.
So you're seeing trends out there in terms of how hospitals are adapting their communication strategy. So one thing that you're talking about is tighter integration. Are there other things that you're seeing that hospitals are doing from an emergency communication standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, really automation, I feel like is key. Again, we're seeing now a lot more go directly to the PBX, which again, they're still having to do a lot of manual process, but they're getting, I feel like, a little bit more receptive to doing paging when it comes to emergency responses, right? It's not like, hey, doctors needed in 242. I mean, we're using the PA for emergency responses. And so I'm also seeing that adoption. But also for the emergencies that I'm working with these facilities on, they're also doing deeper dives on like root cause analysis, looking at analytics to help support like how they can also improve. So that's just a few things I'm seeing so far.
Cool, which will tee up the next set of questions for Gina. So we have all used the word integration as a kind of key part of how to sew these things together. And then automation, and Tessa brought into the mix the root cause analysis, analytics side of things. So Rauland has been in the communication business for how many years now? Is it over 100? Oh, yeah.
It's
So
95 technically.
And it started out really in the more generalized communication, and then education became a really important thing. And then in the late 70s, nurse call became a part of the thing. And a lot of times in the old days, these were kind of disparate parts that never came together. We're in an unusual moment in time whereby these technologies and capabilities are now being melded together in a way that we never saw before. So traditionally, Rauland had Responder for healthcare, Telecenter for education, and now there's a lot of things going on to bring those things together. So there is this Telecenter Annunciator, and then ways of enhancing emergency response communication by taking those comprehensive capabilities and bringing them together. So why don't you tell us a little about how this is all being brought together?
Both Responder and Telecenter are built with an open architecture. So they're designed with integrations in mind. We use standard protocols. So communicating between those two systems and the security systems you have, or the duress systems you have, all the other pieces that are in the hospital that involve safety for your staff can work together. And someone like Tessa or someone from her team can look at the whole story and say, for all the stakeholders, what's going to be best? How do we notify that there's an emergency in the room that requires the code team, or there's an emergency in the room that requires someone from security, or any of the other pieces? How do we get that to them either audibly, visually, on the phone in their pocket, on the screen on the wall, whatever is most appropriate for that audience, she can design the system to communicate that way.
So back when I worked at Rauland, it was at the very beginning of this idea of customization that didn't require somebody to physically show up on site with a tool belt, jumper wires and that kind of thing. So, Gina, you work on the software side of things for a product management standpoint. So customization is all of a sudden, at this point, has a lot of maturity and a lot of possibilities. So what role does customization play in adapting these systems to different hospital environments? And what are some exciting things you're doing around that?
Right. Yeah, that's where the magic is for sure. So hospitals can configure custom workflows, alerts, call routing, escalation paths, and they can do it based on the units that they're in, the specific protocols that they're focused on, or the staff level, the person who's using the tool, or the activity of the patient in the room. So all these pieces can contribute to what makes sense for this call routing or this communication that needs to leave the room or bring people to the room.
And I have to imagine in the work that you do, especially there's a new generation of this technology that's evolving right now. You're making choices from a product perspective to enable these kinds of things in a way that maybe 20 years ago were just not important.
Absolutely. And we're working with teams like the ones at Lone Star to talk to customers like at big teaching hospitals and community hospitals, long-term care facilities. So getting that direct input, what's important to them, and making sure that the next generation of products takes that in mind and supports these new workflows. Like we're seeing virtual nursing, virtual sitting coming up, and cameras in the room. So this is a new set of people who need to communicate to the nursing staff, who need to communicate to the patient room, and all of that can be negotiated through Responder and through the customizations that teams like Tessa works with can do.
And Rauland has done a good job of creating core building blocks that can be assembled or configured in unique ways, in ways that were never possible before. Tessa, I'm going to go to you. So let's talk about the sort of user experience from a button pushing and clinical staff during a high stress situation. What are things that you guys are doing that are making sure that we collapse down that response time, but also that there's a level of confidence and assurity in terms of something supposed to happen happening?
Right. Yeah. So with that, I mean, when you're in an emergency situation, right, you're in a fight or flight situation where you're not really thinking through additional steps in order to get the right people there. So also with voice to talk, we've seen not to be the best way of communication when you're in a high stress situation, especially with noise and commotion in the background. So we've been really trying to keep it simple. I've kind of taken pieces from the fire alarm system, right? Like stop, drop, roll. I'm like, flip the cover, push the button, compressions. Like it should be that simple, that could be a monologue in somebody's head when they're performing and doing a code, but also working through the workflow processes of current and what state we want to go to, but also drills and doing mock drills are really important, and making sure that you hardwire things that, again, you don't do every day. And then also that can identify the gaps too of like what further education or communication breakdowns as well.
So I'm going to stay with you, Tessa, and then we'll bring Gina in on this. So hospitals don't buy new nurse call systems or new emergency systems every year.
Right.
They're going to try to extend the life of what they have for as long as they can, sometimes adding on, modifying. Typically, new systems come when there are new buildings or new construction or renovation happening. So leveraging existing infrastructure is ends up being an important part of what we can do for customers to help them now, and also create a starting point for something that they may want to do in a new building or so forth. Can you talk about the importance of leveraging the existing infrastructure as part of our ability to best support staff and patient safety?
Yeah, again, it's not just buying some other shiny new thing, right? And putting it in place. I mean, the nurse call is the lifeline for the clinicians rather. So like using TCU and having it native as a Rauland product. And I mean, even from a PA perspective, the PA doesn't matter, right? We can do an overlay and make sure that we have communication with that PA system that they have at the facility. And I mean, clinical, they love that, right? You don't want to have to go and put in a request for capital, which we're seeing facilities who don't have an automated like TCU system. We're having to wait and to get the dollars in order to get integration going. So, I think leveraging what they have, I mean, it's best case scenario. And with Rauland being a 95-year-old company, it's just tried and true. I mean, the software, the hardware, it's great. I mean, we can't get people to get rid of it, it seems like, and go to the newer platform because it works so well, you know? So, I think there's a trust already with the Rauland brand. So, I like that TCU is going into the healthcare sphere. It's needed.
Well, so Gina loves the fact that you are saying, "Hey, it's so good." They don't feel like they need something new, but at the same time, she hates you for saying that.
It works. It works when it has to
work. That's right. But in general, Gina, you probably, as part of your strategy from a product standpoint, are thinking about how you play in an existing infrastructure universe. So obviously there are all kinds of new innovations. We want to introduce those things, but are there things that you guys are doing now, just recognizing that the customer sometimes needs you to do what they need to do with the things that they have?
Absolutely. Whenever we're looking at new development, we're thinking about our customers today. So how do we bring someone forward with a minimal investment? How do we use the hardware that's installed on the wall to do new things? Or when a customer buys something new, like virtual nursing, like adding telecenter, how do we connect to those systems so that we can extend Responder without replacing anything and still get, the 1 + 1 is 3 kind of result?
All right, cool. So we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about staff and patient safety innovations. And I'll start with you, Gina. So how does Rauland Technology support staff during events like weather emergencies or combative patient situations? And since a lot of people will be just kind of listening, paint some word pictures about what that might look like and feel like as people use the technology.
So during an emergency, what you might see in Responder is, I guess the notifications in the hallway would be first. So if there's an emergency, you'll see blinking lights in the hallway. You'll see large TVs with status information on them, showing updates. Phones in everyone's pockets are ringing. And you might hear an overhead page when you're connected to a telecenter system that has a recorded message telling you what's going on and what you need to do. So all of that together would be a response for an emergency situation, like a weather emergency or any other emergency that requires this mass notification into the rooms or into one area. So maybe it's a code situation like Tessa was mentioning that wouldn't need to be notified in a whole hospital. So you would just do those notifications in the area that makes sense.
So as product manager, you live in the now, but you also live in the future. There are some innovations that are being worked on, some that are more on the drawing board than others. What are some things that you guys are thinking about in terms of improving both staff and patient safety?
Well, it's all about that right information to the right person at the right time. So when I'm looking at the future, I'm I'm picturing someone walking down the hall in a acute care setting, saying, what do I need to know when I'm walking down the hall? I need to know which room to go to. Before I take a step into that room, what information do I need to know about the patient in the room or the situation I'm walking into? Once I'm there, how do I need to communicate out of that room, or what other information might I need directly at that patient's bedside? So as we're focusing on the future, it's those scenarios that we're looking at, and we're looking to make improvements to our software to help support all those needs. And then new devices you'll see that also support all that new stuff.
Which we won't talk about yet.
We can't talk about yet.
We can't talk about yet. Yeah, I know that there's work being done with, say, mate lighting as an example, as a way of connecting up, and you don't have to confirm or deny that, whereby the visual communication and lighting is a very powerful thing. So to have these things work together in support of patient and staff safety, it's very, very cool. So Tessa, let me go to you to sort of explore this a little bit further. You work with customers directly all the time. What are some safety concerns clinicians are talking about most often now?
I mean, yeah, one of the first ones is just the delayed response with deteriorations or emergencies just in general, right? So not acting upon and education based upon like a rapid response team and being able to identify those early warning signs, but also slow response times just for code blues and emergencies in general, and knowing their role within the code situation. And then I would say my next biggest one would be equipment reliability and usability. I like to say good luck for a clinician once they lose faith in something and trust. Like they'll put it in a drawer. Like they'll never use it again. Which, I mean, rightfully so, right? So things also need to be standardized in the approach and the phases there, but there also needs to be training with the tech that's rolled out. So the people need to be a part of that process and understand. So I would say those are probably the two top safety concerns that I hear.
And just to kind of flesh that out a little further, so we're in a position to provide technology to support all of this, and the technology is bridging the gap between sort of perceived safety and actual preparedness. I want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So first off, yeah, with that, I mean, with the automation aspect, right, it's going to take a lot of the human delay out of the process with it. So, I mean, imagine being in a code, you're flipping the button, you're like, okay, what room am I in? I have to talk over the phone or a speaker to say, hey, I have a medical emergency here and 220, and trying to make sure the crash card and people are well informed. So that automation, I mean, all that is you just have to go for what the job is, right? You take care of the patient and you do what you got to do. But I also think that the technology adds for visibility of the data. And so it also supports like the good work that they're doing, and then also be able to identify, right, the gaps of improvement. Without the tech and getting that piece within it, it's just a lot harder from a manual perspective, looking through data and seeing trends and where improvements could be. And then finally, I just think that the automation can guides the staff in the moment, right? Like that trust we were just talking about. I mean, when you press a button that it's going to perform a certain action, you feel more confident with the situation at hand, even when it's an emergency, right? So, yeah, I would say it was those three things are really key to help.
Well, and one of the things that has always been part of how Rauland has gone to market, hospitals have subs working in various roles. There might be somebody that isn't adequately trained in protocols. So by having well orchestrated automations that take human decision making out of it, the likelihood of something happening the way it was intended to happen is much stronger.
Exactly.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about leveraging technology for staff safety. We've already kind of touched on this, but Gina, Rauland has been working with RTLS for a long time. So when I was at Rauland in the ancient days, Rauland had a partnership with, I think the original name of what has become Midmark was Precision Tracking, which eventually became Versus, which eventually became Midmark. And that was a novel technology in, 1994, 1995 when Responder 4 came out. But now it's much more mature and much more reliable. So how does Rauland incorporate features like RTLS badges and zone paging into safety strategy?
So RTLS badges are kind of easy. They're part of, as you said, part of the workflow for a lot of our hospitals today. So when you're wearing a badge and you walk into a patient room, Responder knows you're in the room, so we can show everybody else on the floor that Gina has walked into this room, and Gina's a nurse. I'll also automatically cancel any calls that were set for me. So if I'm responding to a call, I don't have to touch anything on the walls. Responder knows I've entered the room, I've canceled my call. And then while I'm there, if I've walked into an emergency, I can, of course, hit the buttons on the wall, but when I have my hands full of patient, I might not be able to do that. So instead, I can hit the button on my badge that I'm wearing, and then that information can be sent from the RTLS system versus or somebody else, and immediately go to my team that's going to help me in that room or to others that there's assistance needed.
And all of that information about the movements of the staff is being stored and audited and accounted for in the background, which leads to my next question. So, what role does reporting and analytics play in improving emergency response protocols?
Right, huge role, we think. And Responders uniquely positioned because we do have that what's happening in the room that no one else has. So from button press through every step of the escalation, every phone that rang, everybody who answered a call, everyone who walked in the room, all of that's tracked, time-stamped, and available till the end of the call. So then when you go to do a retrospective, how did we do? You can see how long did it take for us to get there? Did the equipment show up immediately? Did all the personnel get notified? Who was in the room? Who wasn't in the room? And then you can make improvements based on that. Maybe the equipment was too far away. Maybe the code team itself is 2 buildings over, and we should rethink that. So all of those things are kind of spelled out black and white when you look at every single step of a call.
So let's toss it over to Tessa, because Tessa is involved with doing this kind of work every day. So, and I'm throwing you for a little bit for a loop because this wasn't in our prep. So can you give us some examples of how you've used that kind of data to help the customer improve upon its emergency response?
From an RTLS perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's crucial also to know when staff arrive to the room, as Gina stated, right? We have that visibility. So again, you can see if, let's say, the code team's wearing RTLS badges, when did they arrive, right? Like that's an important metric to help with improvement of response times. But also, I mean, combative patience, I think is a huge one. So leveraging that and being able to, again, quickly identify and have the teams get to the right spot is crucial for safety for the staff. So.
Well, and also from a security auditing perspective, to be able to understand what happened in the event that something did happen. And, we know that hospitals can be very litigious environment, and having the data to support the fact that, yes, our team was in the room and this is how quickly they were there. So there's lots of...
I feel like too, RTLS really adds to their kind of tool belt of options, like especially for Code Blue. So you could have a duress button on your wireless device. You could have one at the staff terminal with Responder. And then you also have one on your badge. So I think it's like pick your flavor, right? Like which one do you prefer? Which one's most accessible? I think it just adds to that. I just wanted to point that out too.
Good. And then the last question I had for you was, what kind of feedback are we getting from hospitals who are using Responder and Telecenter about safety improvements in general?
Yeah, they're really loving, the automation. And so we're starting to see improvements. But a lot of our customers right now, we're still in quite the discovery phase, which helps us, map out. And you can't just plug and play the technology, right? Like we need to understand and do the flow diagrams of where TCU is going to fit within that emergency. So we're in that phase with a lot of them. But again, a lot of my partners I work with, they don't have TCU right now, and they're wanting it. They're looking for an automated solution. So I'm hoping, we'll get some more traction there and people will have it within their budgets to have something like TCU to help with this.
Yeah, and given the work that Rauland has been doing on the backside to bring together Rauland and Responder and Telecenter, it may not be that big a lift to get the customer to incrementally improve. And one of the things that I learned in my work over the last few months with Rauland is how one can start at a certain place, and then you can take baby steps to get to that more larger safety net, which is, I think, where all this is headed. Gina, what's next for your team? What can you talk about?
Well, like I was saying, really, it's that delivering the right information to the right person at the right time, and that's about all I can say about what's coming now. We can talk about. We do have new boards coming out, so status boards. So Tessa has another tool to put in a nurse's station or a break room or on the walls in a unit that give you that immediate feedback information. Where is the emergency? Maybe I hear something and I can't see the room from where I'm standing. It's a way to share that information at a glance. So there are some new things coming out right now as well.
And we can tease a little bit without being specific to say that 2026 has a lot coming from Rauland to in the healthcare vertical that can extend the capabilities of what they expect from you today.
Absolutely. That is correct to say.
All right, good. And Tessa, we'll give you the last word here. What advice would you give healthcare facilities facing safety challenges?
Oh, yeah, just to work with your local teams and partners to help determine some better efficiencies, but taking the time to go through it, map it out, figure out where we can improve. I mean, also, I feel like with the sites we've been working with, they've relied on us to help them with that work, right? We're not wanting the facilities. So it's a true partnership that we can work through this together and make a difference.
Cool. Hey, Gina, you want to leave us with anything?
Well, just to add to what Tessa said, when you're working with the stakeholders at the hospital, those priorities are going to change every year. So working with Tessa this year on the priorities of today is important, but keeping those current. And as you add a new technology, like a new phone system or telecenter or anything, to revisit that whole solution and say, is this still best for our nurses? Did we change a protocol and now we need to complement that in a different way? So that ongoing care and feeding of the system, making sure that it's not just something we've set up once and then let age on the walls.
Yeah, and what's great for, as I have watched all of this evolve, is that the comprehensiveness of the solution that we can provide together, it's so mature, it's so evolved, there are so many possibilities that were just not even anywhere on our horizon, even 10 years ago. And the potential to bring things together seamlessly is so much easier today than it's ever been. So a hospital who is looking at safety, both from a patient and staff perspective, has a great deal of options for them today than that are easily adoptable and high value without necessarily a tremendous amount of cost. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure talking to you.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks so much for joining us today on CarePoints. I encourage you to hit the like button and subscribe so that you can get notified when we release our next episodes. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting service, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever your favorite platform is. And make sure to visit us on the web at www.lonestarcom.com/podcast. That's www.lonestarcom.com/podcast. You'll find all of our old episodes there. Thanks so much for listening, and looking forward to having you back soon.